What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are looking at the SKECHERS Go Run XS2, and I'm just realizing looking at the screen that reviewing a black pair of shoes with a black t-shirt isn't going to work. That is much better. Now these shoes stand out like they should. Okay, I want to get started by telling you that there are a lot of things that I like about this shoe. And the funny thing is that all the things that I like about this shoe didn't really come to the front of my mind until I started talking about how I was going to describe it to you. The SKECHERS Go Run XS2, kind of a mouthful. Let's just call it the XS2 from now on. The XS2 is kind of an up-tempo / light daily trainer. I think it could very easily fit into both of those categories. And in the world where this shoe compares with other shoes that are quite a bit more expensive, the price is actually pretty fantastic. Now, after running in the shoe, I think it very easily compares to other brands of shoes where their shoes cost $150, $160, $170. And on the SKECHERS website, you can get a pair of the XS2 for $140. On Running Warehouse, it is $140. But if you buy it from Amazon, it's on there for $130. And that is the link that I will provide to you in the show notes below. I want you guys to get the best deal. Oh, and I do just want to let you know that SKECHERS was good enough to send me the XS2 for the purpose of review. SKECHERS isn't paying me to make this video, and they're not going to get a chance to see this review before you do. Okay, so price, disclosures, the next important thing is weight. The XS2 is a pretty light shoe. For a US men's size 9, the XS2 tips the scale at 7.2 ounces or 204 grams. And now would be a great time to tell you that the XS2, or SKECHERS generally, fits true to size. I wear a US men's size 13 in most brands, and for my size, the XS2 tips the scale at 10.1 ounces or 287 grams. Now, for those of you with small feet, you might be thinking, Matt, that's not that light. But for me, this is a pretty light shoe. Of course, it's a pretty light shoe until I go out for a very fast run where I'm really breaking a sweat for a very long time. And then I come home and I put my dirty, sweaty shoe on the kitchen scale and it's put on a bit of weight. After a long interval run, the XS2 tips the scale at 12.3 ounces or 350 grams. So that is a 22% increase in weight, which is pretty substantial. But I really only mention that for sensational value. It really isn't going to make that much difference for most of you watching this video. For those of you who like to splash through water in your shoes, or you live in a place where you sweat heavily when you go out for your runs, yeah, it may make a difference. However, I also have to say that at the end of that run, I really didn't notice that it had put on that weight. But I was pretty excited that my foot was so wet in the shoe and I got to put it on the scale. Anyway, stuffing it with a bit of newspaper, soaks up all that sweat, and the shoes are as good as new. Now, I am a fan of a higher stack height shoe. I really do enjoy the cush. I like going out for a nice plush ride. So I wasn't sure what to think about the stack height of 30 in the heel and 26 in the forefoot for a 4mm drop. Now, I know historically a stack height of 30mm in the heel, that's getting into the realm of pretty max cushion'ish, but my opinion has changed of what constitutes a max cushion shoe over the last couple of years as the stack heights just get bigger and bigger. And when I saw 30mm in the heel, I was like, is that going to be enough? Am I going to feel the road too much? But this is one of those things that I think that you can really take away from this review. The 30-26 stack height was extremely comfortable, and I really didn't notice the harsh ride that I was unrealistically expecting. And I know exactly why that is, but we'll talk about that when we get down to the midsole. So let's start at the top and let's work our way down. You can see here on the heel collar for an up-tempo shoe is actually, it's remarkably padded. And when I put my hand in the shoe around the heel collar, I can feel there is kind of a bolster around the top of it, which actually serves to cup your heel nicely. So when your foot goes in, the heel kind of slots in and is locked into place by this bolster around the top of the heel collar. It's really very nice. The heel counter is very rigid. Oh yeah, very rigid. Can't push that down at all. In fact, when I try to push it down, I can feel that plastic insert that's keeping it in place. And again, the heel counter, along with that bolster around the heel collar, just helps keep that lockdown in place. And we've got a pull tab here on the back. Can't really go wrong with adding a pull tab on the back. Doesn't add that much weight. The upper is one of the big updates that SKECHERS has made from the first version of the XS. They're now using a mono mesh polyester blend, and it just makes the upper feel nice and soft. And as far as the upper goes, I've really got no complaints. It wraps around my foot nicely. And you know what? If I hadn't have put this shoe on the scale after that interval run where I knew I was sweating a lot, I would say that this shoe doesn't really gain much weight. Just touching the upper now, it doesn't feel like it would hold on to the weight. But obviously there is a lot of padding around this heel collar, and I think that's where the majority of the water weight would go. As is right on brand for SKECHERS, we have very little overlays. It's very understated, except for this little SKECHERS S right here on the back. SKECHERS certainly does not overbrand their shoes. And as far as the colorways go, I'm pretty happy with getting the black with the white outsole, and I think it looks pretty sharp. It's kind kind of like a classic look. I've got to say, I'm not as big a fan of the blue zebra print as I am of this understated black zebra print, but when it comes down to it, does color really matter? That's a serious question. Does color really matter? Let me know in the comments below. It does. We've got some overlays along the eyelet chain, just giving it a little extra support, and I think I have nailed down my favorite part about the XS2. I mean, I'm not talking about the ride, I'm talking about the build quality and everything that goes into the shoe, but the tongue. I think the tongue is my favorite part of this shoe, and that is saying a lot because the tongue is not gusseted. There is a little loop right here on the top of the tongue where the laces feed through it to kind of hold it in place. But as far as tongues go, this one is actually quite perfect. And I'm talking about material and I'm talking about thickness. Now the tongue is made of two different materials. We kind of have an aerated mesh down here towards the toe, and then as we get up from about here all the way up to the top, it's, I don't know what it is, maybe a faux suede. But the tongue feels good and the thickness is just right on the nose. If I had to design a perfect thickness for a tongue, this would be it. It's not one of those super thin racing tongues where it's just a micro layer of material covering the top of your foot. And it's not like a daily trainer where it's big and thick. It's like the Goldilocks of tongues. I like it. And there is just enough padding in the top to stop the laces from biting into the top of your foot. Now I've got to say the tongue performs just as well as most other tongues on most other shoes. If I'm honest with you guys, whether it be a very thick tongue on a daily trainer or a super thin racing tongue, I don't really get the laces biting into the top of my foot on most shoes. I've had a couple where it happens, but for the most part it doesn't happen. I just like everything about how this tongue looks. Coming down to the midsole, we have Hyperburst. Now I've talked about Hyperburst in other videos of Skechers shoes that I've run in, and I just put it right out there. I am a fan of Hyperburst. It really is a solid foam. It is a supercritical EVA, and it just has a nice combination of weight and responsiveness and cushiness. I don't know, it's just a good foam. Now, of course, the Hyperburst formula is tweaked in different shoes, or at least I assume it's tweaked in Skechers different shoes. The Hyperburst experience does feel different between this and the Ride 10 and the Max Road 5, but what they all have in common is that they feel fantastic underfoot. The XS2 does use Skechers HyperArch technology. Basically, that's their rocker geometry, and it's very hard to see this on camera where I'm just holding it up because I'm not holding it level, but basically the HyperArch technology is just how the shoe rockers, and Skechers says it promotes efficiency in every stride, which, okay, I agree with that because it doesn't feel like it's holding me back on every stride. But the best thing I like about the HyperArch technology is that it's not too aggressive. It's just a very comfortable feeling of rolling through my gait cycle. And speaking of not being too aggressive, there's something else in the shoe that I really like that I think some people might think is a little bit of overkill, but I'm here to tell you it's not, and that's their carbon infused H plate. So technically speaking, the XS2 is a plated shoe. But if you have any experience running in plated shoes, especially using plated shoes when you're not racing, oftentimes a plated shoe can feel a little harsh. Not sure if harsh is the right word, but sometimes when I'm going out for an easy run in a plated shoe, it's like I can feel that plate and the ride doesn't feel as plush. Now I know a lot of you are going to say, well man, why are you using a plated shoe to go out for an easy run? And my answer to that would be because I can. But in some shoes, it is not the best experience. But in the XS2, the H plate doesn't have a feeling of rigidity, and it is not an aggressive feeling pushing me forward. Now, if you're wondering what the H plate actually looks like, let me put it up on the screen for you right now. But here's something else I want to show you. And I didn't realize this until I was inside looking at the insole. But let's put a pin in the H plate for just a second while we're talking about the insole, because the XS2 is using Skechers podiatrist certified Archfit technology. And basically, Skechers, I assume, have a team of podiatrists that they're working with, and they looked at over 120,000 foot scans, and they came up with the most perfect insole, gives you support on your arch, which just benefits your entire running experience. And I have to tell you that I quite like it. I don't actually notice the arch support, but I'm not sure if my feet are conducive to actually having the arches supported as much as the Archfit technology does. But if you need arch support, I bet these will be a dream. And if you don't need arch support, or perhaps you want some super razor thin insole, you can always take out this podiatrist certified Archfit technology insert. And it wasn't until I took out the Archfit technology insert and looked inside the shoe that I noticed you can actually see the H plate when the insert is taken out. So basically the H plate is two pieces of carbon infused material. It starts around here at the front of the shoe and comes back to about here. And I think the main purpose of this plate is to give you a more efficient toe off. It doesn't throw you forward the way other carbon plated shoes that you might have heard about do, but it does give the XS2 just a little bit of snap, and it probably contributes to a little bit of stability in the shoe. While we're talking about stability, the XS2 does have a wider base and a wider heel, which is going to make the whole ride just feel a little more comfortable. You will not be in danger of rolling anything in this shoe. And now that we're talking about the wider forefoot and the wider heel, you can see this nice coverage of outsole rubber. Like a lot of Skechers shoes, they're partnering with Goodyear to provide their performance outsole, and this is important, but it's a soy-based rubber. So you are saving the manatees, saving the rainforests, whichever part of the environment that you want to save. This outsole rubber contributes to that, I think. Either way, it's a soy-based rubber, not a petroleum-based rubber. It was good for the environment. And Skechers does say that this outsole rubber works across all temperatures, so whether you are running in the cold or whether you're running in the heat, it's going to provide an equal amount of grip. Can't really talk to that, as the time that I have been running in this shoe, it's been hot all the time. But what I can tell you is that running in the heat, the shoe grips like a cornering F1 race car. Now, I have only run about 50 miles before I made this review, and I've got to say I am really not seeing too much wear on this shoe. In fact, it looks surprisingly good for 50 miles. However, the outsole rubber looks quite thin to me, and I know Skechers has done this to save weight. This is a faster shoe. We don't need to really weigh it down with just a boatload of rubber. But even though I don't see too much wear after 50 miles, just the thickness of the rubber makes me wonder. So if you have run in the XS2 or you've put a lot of miles on the XS, let me know how your shoes are holding up after however many miles you've done. So let me just summarize this shoe for you. Now remember, $130. I've heard that depending on where you're shopping in the UK, you can get the XS2 for less than £100. And with those prices in mind, this shoe represents incredible value. Aesthetics are always going to be a personal preference, and on one hand I do like the understated look of Skechers. On the other hand, the shoe is a bit plain. And I know we can't have it both ways, and I don't know which I want more, but I can tell you that I like it, and I wish it was a little more stylish. Is that possible? But looks aside, this shoe performs exceedingly well. And it took me running in other shoes and comparing it to this shoe before I realized how well the XS2 stands up. I'm not sure if I would use this shoe to race a marathon, but you certainly could. There is enough cushion and stack height in there to protect your body from running that far. And I think the combination of the less aggressive carbon infused plate and the less aggressive rocker make this shoe perform pretty well as a daily trainer, as well as those times when you're going to need to pick up the pace during intervals from the tempo run on strides. So if you have made it this far in the video, and let's say you haven't run in a Skechers shoe, I can safely say that this shoe is worth every penny of those $130 that you can buy it for. And I think you'll be surprised when comparing it with some more expensive competitors. Alright guys, thanks for staying all the way to the end of this video. My name's Matt. This is the Skechers Go Run XS2. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.